Next up, we have Rob presenting for us. He is the author of 6 books. He has spent over 40 years traveling close to 3 million miles, teaching, entertaining, and inspiring audiences worldwide. Rob says when true professionals speak, they can't just be good, they have to be extraordinary. And when they are, the potential impact can be career altering. Often it's the little things that make those presentations amazing. And Rob is going to give you 60 minutes worth of little things that they don't teach you in presentation skills workshops so that you can be amazing too.
All right, good. Well, we're going to talk about some little things. So let's do one right now. I'm not sure how many of you, when you give presentations, sit in a chair, but usually they don't wheel me into a chair at the Marriott Ballroom to speak. I tend to walk across that stage. Virtual's a little bit different, but let's get up. Hang on one second. Yeah, that feels more like a presentation now, doesn't it? I also think that when you give a presentation, typically you've got a handout of some sort. And although I know it's very popular, I'm not a huge fan of handing out a picture of a slide. I want my audience, like you all, to focus on what we're going to talk about today. So why don't, instead of handing you just a picture of the slide, why don't we take the notes for you so you really can focus? So Jeremy, if you haven't done it already, but we're going to put a handout for you. It'll have all the critical points that are in this presentation, including a little bit of dialogue that backs them up. Still think you can take some notes, but that's for those of you who like to just keep eyes on the screen and get working. Let's talk about this thing. We've got there's so much going on when you give a presentation. You got one chance to give that presentation. Let's make it spectacular. Let's have that audience say, that wasn't just a 10. That's the best thing I ever saw. So how do you get to that level? Because when you can get to that level, that's what the speakers bureaus are looking for. They know it when they see it. But tell them what you're going to tell them. And I'm sorry, let me get that 11th grade model right, because I try to get it out of my head. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. There. Now you can give your high school presentation. We got to do much better than that, and we're going to. So I'm going to show you the agenda we've got. I'm going to want you to put those questions in the chat area, but I will tell you, I'm probably going to throttle down, hit this thing hard. And maybe I'll take one or two as we move from topic to topic, and then I'll clean them all up at the end. And Sarah, you keep an eye on them, because I'll tell you also, I don't look at the chat area when I'm speaking. I'm actually looking at you all. And I'm sometimes keeping an eye on my screen too. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the first 3 to 5 minutes very quickly, and really one great idea for you there. Again, count the ideas. I hope you get 30 of them today, and we'll document them. So we're going to talk about the first 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to talk about getting the audiences engaged. I'm a sales trainer. That's what I write about. That's what I teach. When you're selling somebody, the more the client talks, the more they like you. When you're working with an audience, the more they're engaged, the more they like you. So we're going to talk about that. A few tricks of the trade, just some things that maybe you haven't seen, and then sticking your landing, which is probably a trick of the trade, but a lot can be forgiven if you bring that presentation in powerfully. Think about some of the great presentations you've seen and how they ended, not how they began, how they ended. But wait, there's more. I also want to talk to you a little bit about some couple of common mistakes. Let's weed those out while we're at it. I'm going to talk to you about getting the audiences to take action. We've got some presenters here. I love that last presentation. There's a lot of action that appears to be going on. If we're going to collaborate and get 20 or 30 of us together, we got to figure out how to get that audience to take action. That one looked really good on paper by a pro. We got to pull that off. I'll show you a couple moves in presentations. I'm sneaking a little bit about bulk book sales, just a kind of a sales technique that I use just because it's such a hot topic. And then we're going to finish up by talking about handouts, like the one that you've had, and why I don't even know if that qualifies as a little thing. I think it's a big thing to have the right kind of handout, the right kind of documentation. So let's climb in. All right. First 3 to 5 minutes, rock and roll. I've got a lot that we can do, but I'm going to tell you, triple up the WIFM. If I was going to pick one thing, and when I say triple up the WIFM, that's that what's in it for me. Adrian kind of addressed that at one point. Want to get a good speaker? Tell them what's in it for them. Want to get at an audience? Tell them what's in it for them. but we're talking about things they don't teach you in presentation skills. Sorry, not enough. You've got to dissect that into three. You're probably not doing it. Okay. One, tell the audience what you're going to talk about is going to help them personally, because there's a percentage of the audience that's kind of focused on just themselves. They don't come in with signs on their heads. They're sitting there in that audience. Sitting next to them are some people that are thinking about, how's this going to help me on my job? We typically, and that's fine too. Again, I can't just say at the end, you're going to feel a lot better about marketing. That's not really a win for them, okay? But not only will we make this easier so you can save time at your desk, but we're going to make sure by saving time at your desk, you'll have a little bit more time to spend at home. That's a personal and a job. I'll tell you the one that's typically missed because it's a very small percentage of the audience, and that's the corporate one. You're speaking to a corporation. You may have 100 people in that audience. I'm only talking about 2 or 3 right now. The 2 or 3 that are probably writing your check, they're going to take your invoice. They're fine that people are going to have more time at home. And they certainly wanted to make sure that it helps them in the job. But to say, this is going to help your company this way. And if you triple up that with them, you just took a slight step forward from the other speakers in that green room who are going to give one generic whiff them and roll on. Sorry, it's too important. Okay, so why don't you try it? All right. What I'd like you to do, and I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. Here, I think I even have some music. I'll give you 20 seconds. You don't have to put it in the chat area, but either in your handout or on a sheet of paper, pick one of the 3 that you don't normally consider and see if you can scratch out a couple of words for it. All right, let's see what we got here. Here, thinking time. For a weapon you don't normally use. All right, pens down. I'm not playing Jeopardy, but anyway, take a note on that one. See if you can push yourself. And I'll bet most of you are sliding in a corporate with them, which you don't normally do. Okay. Again, we want to keep that person, that manager, that person in the back corner who's got their neck out on the line a little bit for you sometimes. We want to make them happy. Okay. All right. Bang. Let's get creative. All right. Everybody gets creative, but the pros will take it to a different level. Actually, hope you can hear that thinking music. I actually decided on that about 15 seconds before I reached for it. I just have things laying around here. I tend to get spontaneous, but it's creative. Now, some other creative moves you can make. I'm bet many of you are storytellers. That's good. I want to find one that you're not doing, but storytelling is important. I just booked a speaker for one of my clients who wrote a book called Story Selling. Okay. And that client, a major company, came to me and was looking for that speaker. P.S., by the way, it's one of the greatest things you can do for a client. Want to go from being a vendor/speaker to a trusted business advisor? Look at your network of speakers, and it's not always you. You'll get the next one. Okay. I made friends with a speaker, and we've got that speaker going in there. But maybe you'll tell a story. Maybe you've got a great quote, right? We put them in our books. Let's put those in the presentation. Remember, it's not one thing, it's 30 things, right? So we slide in a quote occasionally, maybe an analogy of some sort, maybe a visual aid, just a very creative visual aid that you use, or an object. Maybe you put in a small group exercise. For those of you who are a little bit anxious when you speak, I can tell you from training many trainers for Xerox, the ones that get anxious will typically try and move an exercise way up to the front, because we all get our legs under us after a couple of minutes. To be able to take the stage and then basically move people around a little bit and just take the pressure off of heavy delivery and move into a small group exercise and then work off that exercise might give you the ability to kind of hit the ground running a little bit, so we can knock some of that anxiety back. I will tell you right now, not a fan of the word nervous. You don't get nervous. Quietly repeat after me. I don't get nervous when I speak. I may get anxious, but I don't get nervous. That's good. Anxiousness is good. I see a racehorse getting ready to run a race. That horse looks anxious. Let's get ready to run a race. That's fine. I don't want to be chewing my nails in the corner, But if I'm feeling a little burn in my belly, good for me. You know what would make me anxious? If you're getting ready to speak and you don't feel anything, you're probably going to be flat. So let's embrace that little bit of that little burn. That works for us. Okay. Let's channel it into energy. Don't be afraid of it. But if there's some anxiety up front, think about that small group exercise. And believe me, I've had 3,000 people in a room. I haven't run with 3,000, but I had 1,000 people in the room. 1 hour keynote. I ran a role play, including observers that were prepped in the hallway. And I ran it in 9 minutes, soup to nuts, and was able to bank off of that for the next 51. There was a lot of movement, a lot of music. 300 people went charging out. It was pretty cool to watch. Not so sure I'd recommend it for 1,000, but don't get intimidated with an audience of 100, 150 and think, I can't do anything with this audience. The heck you can. You really can. Just break them into groups, okay? But touch and go. You can't spend 30 minutes on an exercise. Get creative. Now you try it. Okay. Maybe in your notes, pick one off the list. Maybe I actually, in my seminar book, for those of you who've done multiple editions, I think I had 20 ways to keep people interested and get them and creative. And I had to keep building on it. But now I'm up to like 47 or something. Point being, there's a ton of things in there, ton of different moves. I know you've got your usual ones. Pick one you don't normally use and get creative with it. Okay. I'll give you a minute. I'll hit you with the music every other time, right? So take about 10 seconds, see what you can write there. Oh, yeah. You and me, keep them interested. That's the name of the game. We'll get them in. They're interested in the first 3 minutes if we build this thing right. It's can you sustain it? Can you build off of it? And while you're finishing writing, don't put so much pressure on being Mr. or Mrs. Interesting in the first 5 to 10 minutes of any presentation. You're going to rush that audience. You're going to push them too fast. It looks desperate. You be you. You get up there. You go up on that stage with confidence. You bring your energy and your enthusiasm. You take that pressure off of having to win the first 3 minutes. Just know what you're going to be talking about and go do your job. Our goal is to keep building. We're maybe a 6 out of 10 for the first 10 minutes. Now we're moving at a 7.5. Now we got them at an 8. Now they're climbing into a 9. We're coming down the home stretch at a 10. That's the way I like it. Okay. Don't put too much pressure on. We roll on. Keep that audience engaged. Got to keep them interested. Okay. So how do we engage the audience? Well, we put one small group exercise up there already, but I'm going to give you something that, and remember, little things that the pros do. And I know we're all pros here, but that this pro does, okay? I think we got to get more creative with the kinds of questions we ask and the techniques we use to ask them. We're modeling our teachers unconsciously, more than we should. I got news for you. They don't teach adults a whole lot. We're not sending anybody to the principal's office and you're not failing a test. So I can't inspire you or teach you based on fear. I have to inspire you. I have to make you want to learn. Okay. So not consequence, value. Now, when I say that, I think of the kinds of questions. Well, most of the time in school, we got what's called fact-based factual response questions, which was, Mr. Jollis, can you tell us the capital of Kansas? and off we go. Well, you just heard a very classic technique and type of question. It's a fact-based question, and it's called a direct technique. Right between the eyes, there's a right and wrong. Good luck. Well, not only did you just intimidate the person there, but you just intimidated the audience going, oh, I'm not next. Now they're looking at the floor. We can ask opinion questions. We can ask case study questions. Let me throw a case study at you. Tell me how you do. We can throw a comparison question. How would you compare the way you're doing it now to the way we do? That's the creativity that we're looking for. Beware, if particularly you trainers out there, the ones that are doing workshops, beware of those fact-based questions. And in terms of techniques, beware of direct questions, overhead questions. Can anybody tell me? That's an overhead question. That takes the pressure off the audience a little bit. Okay. There are other techniques. Relay techniques are nice. Maybe you work on a wonderful case study question. Maybe you even put it up on the screen so they can get a good look at it. Why do you want to waste that on one person? Once we get one, maybe we'll relay it to another and we move that around. Nice technique that's not used as often. We should use more relays. And then finally, there is what's called a reverse, which is when you're getting questions. I know that we all want to show people how smart we are, but there's a really nice opportunity sometimes when you get a question to say, well, that's a great question. I could either relay that back out to another individual, right? Or to the group with an overhead, or might relay it back to somebody, you trainers out there who might be what we call sometimes an anxious dependent. They're nervous about AI and they're nervous about some of the technology. So they keep wanting you to answer all the questions for them. It's a great question. How do you think, how have you gotten started so far? That's me reversing it back. That's what the pros do. Okay. Let's lay off those fact-based questions, particularly early, and warm this room up a little bit. How about in terms of audience engagement? I love using scribes. Okay. One, my handwriting isn't all that great, but even if it was, why am I up on that stage writing on that flip chart? Why am I in that U-shaped room writing on that flip chart? No matter to me. Why don't I get somebody up here? And by the way, normally, particularly for our training rooms, we've got tent cards. I can see handwriting. I can see who writes well. So I know everybody will be able to read it. But now I brought somebody up. Now there's a different energy. Now I'm working with somebody, particularly love it on keynotes. I love having somebody up on that stage. So I'm in the middle of that audience and I'm working some exercise and I'm having that person scribe for me up there and we're working back and forth and we get a little bit of a chat going between the scribes and it's nice. And we're going to give those scribes a nice gift too. Nice little thing. Don't you get stuck on that flip chart or that board up there. Let somebody do it for you. Okay. And finally, handouts. And I'll give you what I mean by opportunity. Handouts. Don't ever drop a handout at the end, particularly for you trainers now, workshops. Don't drop handouts at the corner of a table and say, and pass those along. Actually, it gives you an opportunity to walk that room a little bit and get in front of people and bring their energy back up a little bit. Handouts, I hold things intentionally. I like passing out handouts just so I can get a little bit close to every single person there. Obviously, it's a keynote. They'll get them coming in. Opportunity, real important. These are worth their weight in gold. When I say opportunity, I mean, think of an opportunity where maybe you can combine that scribe and an individual who's participating in your case study or an example. And maybe you've got a series of questions. And now we're proving to the audience that this leadership technique works as we saw Sam do it Horn do it a little bit yesterday, one-on-one. I like doing that in front of a room. That's a nice opportunity to show the group you are authentic. You can think on your feet. Okay. So let's think. Now I do things, my nose is going to grow if I tell you it is. I do things that look very spontaneous in front of groups that do have multiple outcomes. But folks, I've been here before. We've done this. I've done it a few times. There's almost no outcome that you're going to have that I probably haven't seen, but you'll still get some good reactions from me like, how are we going to work with that? But you look for those opportunities. A great book that I happen to like, I forgot the author's name, but Games Trainers Play. I think it's been out for like 20 years. There's about 3 or 4 of them. Guy's got a franchise, but there are about 200 exercises in Games Trainers Play. If you go through that book and find 2 that work for you, that you can incorporate to just give a little breathing room to your keynotes, oh my goodness, that book just paid for itself and then some. That's the best bargain book. I wish I wrote it, but if you have got another one, put it in the chat area and tell everybody about it. Okay. But look for those opportunities to engage that audience. How about you try it? How about see if you can put to maybe take one off my list that you don't normally use, or maybe sit back and think, is there an opportunity that you've missed where you really are telling people all the answers to whatever it is, where maybe they could tell you? Take about 20 seconds, just jot down something so you can remember, I'm going to revisit that. That might be one of the key things to do, and we'll put that right in the middle. I like that music. I think we'll go back to music next time we try it. Boom, 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 bing. Okay, let's keep going. All right. Tricks of the trade. Couple of just thoughts here. Okay. One, and this must be a trick of the trade because I bet I've tapped on it about 3 times already. It's so easy to want to do everything yourself. It's sort of like I'm coming up with this analogy instantly, by the way. So I don't even know if this is going to work, but in my head, I'm thinking about it's almost like if you have children and you're trying to teach them something. It's easier to say, "Here, give it to me, I'll show you." But when we're really being good parents, we go, "It take a little bit longer, but I'm not going to take that pen out of your hand. I'm going to instruct you how to keep that pen going." I think that we use the audience. There are opportunities where you're probably doing things for them or just spelling out answers. And if you can use the audience, it's gold. You know, there's that old saying that says, you know, what people hear, they forget; what they see, they remember; what they do, they learn. Do you know how valuable a keynote is that isn't just talking to the audience, that actually has them participating? Remember that WIFM we were talking about with the one or two people that are getting the invoice? That's exactly what they're looking for, because they want what you say to be implemented in their company. Okay. When you use the audience, you have a better shot at doing that. Use transitions, tricks of the trade. When you're working on a new presentation, and I'm assuming most of us speak a little bit or a lot, but just for me, I'm working on a new presentation. I work hard on my beginning, my opening. I work hard on my close, and I eyeball those transitions, because that's sometimes where the presentation bumps a little bit when you go. And so, with leaders, we've got to make sure that we're cognitive of these skills. And uh, skills are, and we can feel, well, that one just took a turn. You know, skills are important, but you know what's really important? Taking those skills and making sure they're applicable. So but that might not come from thin air. That's come from me. And when I sew that together around the big pieces, once I say, okay, you're on the thin air part now, you can go. It's making that transition. What the good ones do will typically spend time on those transitions. You do it too. Okay. Let's see. I happen to be a fan of a lectern. What? Bill Clutch the lectern. Again, that's 11th grade. I know there's a lot of people going, never have a lectern. You'll hold on to it. I would like to just be the guy who says, I have an idea. Stop holding on to the lectern. Okay. And you'll see post-its coming up here in a minute. Let me see if I got it coming next. There it is. All right. And I'll hit the watch in a second. Put a post-it by the lectern. It says stop holding. All right. All you have to do is look at it. You'll take your hands off it. Soon it'll be muscle memory. I'm rarely behind a lectern, but I like being on the side of a lectern. I can put things in that lectern. Maybe we're going to give that audience a gift of some sort. That scribe gets something. The person who was involved in the case study gets something near the end. Maybe we got a couple books we're going to give away, all inside the lectern. Maybe we want to keep an eye on our time, and bigger keynotes, we don't all have monitors in front of us. We got a client that says 60 minutes and don't go over. Maybe we got to keep an eye on a watch. There are clickers, by the way, that have clocks on them. Aren't bad. The key is we can't do this. We can't look at our phone. You do this, 100 people will look at their watch. Try it. Don't try it someday. Okay. But putting it on the lectern. I have all sorts of things I keep on the lectern. You know, when I go for sound effects or something, maybe I can keep that on the lectern. But let's use a lectern, use that watch. Time is important. Trick of the trade. I love what Jeremy, when you said, when Adrian said, do I have enough time? You said you have 30 seconds. That's the beauty of a presentation when you bring them in on time, not 2 minutes early. If you're getting paid top dollar, why are you early? Why are you fast and not late? You're upsetting the meeting planner, who might be the second most important person you want to please in that meeting. If we want to get repeat bookings, don't ruin the meeting for the meeting planner, even if the manager in the back is giving you a smile. Nope. 60 minutes, right on the nose. That's what the pros do. Okay. Now you try it. What I want you to do is pick one off the list, maybe you don't normally use, or maybe create another, and give me some thinking time music this time. All right. Maybe a trick of the trade that you'll incorporate. Yeah, yeah. All kinds of tricks of the trade. I'm to me, I think and again, it's the little things. We just keep piling little things on, little things here or there. All right, let's talk about sticking your landing. Okay, the close. Ooh. important at that close. Okay. Couple of thoughts I want you to keep an eye on. One, think it out, write it out, learn it. I'm not a canned speaker. I think you've all figured that out by now, but more, I'm a lot more careful about my close than most people think. I want to make sure that I end it properly. I don't want to, and one of the things that I think really screws up our endings, and Brad, get a couple smiles out of you on this one, is how many times we have a client that says, we want a Q&A. Well, of course you do. Okay, so we give that Q&A, but think about how clunky the ending becomes. We finish, and I'd like to leave you with one quote. It was Einstein who said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, knowledge, knowledge." And well, everybody loves you. Okay, now Al, the Q&A way, and away we go. And somebody comes up, okay, and first we're begging for a question early, and will we get one at all? And then we get the question, couple of questions, and the momentum starts picking up. That's great. And then it gets a little quiet again. And then the speaker says, well, the person says, thank you. And you go, thank you. Way we go. Not the best way to jump off that pommel horse, so to speak, to have something ready to go, even while you're being pulled, go, great. And if I could leave you with just one last story. I would like to tell you all that when and launch into it, make it quick, okay? But think it out, write it out. Get that landing thought out, okay? Make it your best trick. When I say that, best story you got. I know some people will say, take the best story you got and come out of the chute with it. No, as I said, I don't need to win the crowd over in the first 19 seconds. I'll give my second best story. I think some of you, I gave a presentation a few years ago, might have heard that I used to juggle. Maybe I'll do that next talent show at the authors retreat. That'll get you to the authors retreat. I used to be a juggler, and I learned good from jugglers. They take their second best trick and they typically start with it. That shows you how good we are. But the best one comes last. Best story, last. Best quote, whatever it is, last. And it's just a trick of the trade and, kind of a way to close. But I think we forget to thank the audience. Particularly for switching to workshops. Hope you don't mind me kind of pendulating them over. Keynote workshops. By the way, if you're doing keynotes and you're not doing workshops, hello. That said, don't forget to thank the audience. Maybe this isn't a 1 hour event. Maybe this is a 1 day workshop. You keep thanking that audience for their questions. One, it's polite, and two, I bet you get some more come the afternoon. It builds. Don't forget to thank the audience. They deserve to be thanked. One of the kindest things an audience can do is ask a presenter questions. Okay, now you try it. All right, pick one off the list that you don't normally use. Maybe you'll focus on. You can always add one to that list and take a look at it. See, while you're doing it, I see in the chat area, my music may not be heard. Well, you're going to hear it next time. I'm gunning the volume. We'll see. All right. Be careful what you wish for.
I think Zoom is cutting out the music.
Yeah, well, I'm going to fight Zoom on it. We'll see if we can't pull that off. It's awfully good face to face. Okay. All right. Good. Now you try. We got that taken care of. Hey, Jeremy, give me my closing time. It's 1:39 here on the East Coast. What time do you have me finishing? Because
you end at 10 after.
10 after. Roger that. Good. Got a little breathing room. Might take a few questions. Okay. How about, you know what? Let's take one now. I would love to hear, maybe, let's see, write it in the chat area, one you did pick off the list or maybe you don't normally use. You can select. Yeah. I'm reading the hands of very helpful him, by the way. Yeah. Spontaneous move on the music. Normally I'm a little bit more planned than that. Okay. You actually adjust the audio of the music. Yes. It'll be coming up.
Some questions written down. Rob, do you want me to read them out?
Yeah. Give me a question or two.
Okay. So
and I want some good ones. It doesn't have to be on what you see on the screen. This is the presentation whisperer. Ask me some good ones. Go ahead. Let me hear what we got.
This one was actually for me. What do you do when you ask for a volunteer and you get crickets from the
Yeah.
audience?
Yeah. Great question. It's one of the reasons why we never ask, first of all, it begins as an overhead. Okay. And second, just sweeten the pot. I think many of you may know I'm an auctioneer. I do live auctions for charities. There's a bunch for Big K, by the way. Uh, but we call it salting the item. So we have an item for sale, nobody's buying it. We salt it a little bit. And salting, salting here would be, I might just have a book in this lectern because I really could use just salt it up a little bit. You'll get somebody. Keep it overhead. Don't go direct. And rarely will I come out of the gate early asking because I haven't read the audience yet and they haven't read me. But if you don't hit them too early and build to that right now, maybe another trick that I use is I'll go rhetorical early. How many of you have ever had this before? Just give me a nod or show. And I'm sort of getting people to nod and grunt, and the audience is beginning to feel safe with me so that I can work my way to that. But it's sort of a step up event there in terms of getting questions, particularly for large groups. Fear not, everyone. There are some real good extroverts out there that have no problem if you give them a minute. And one other thing, a tip I'd like to give you. Be aware of how fast your brain moves when you ask for those questions, because a lot of times we'll say, does anybody have any questions? Good. Now we just launch. And for you, that felt like I waited. I actually will keep my hands behind my back when I ask if there are any questions so I can physically move my fingers to count because my brain moves too fast. So right now I'm on hyperdrive. It felt like 10 seconds. It might have been 3. You'll smile every time you get a question 5 or 6 seconds later, and that's a long time. Anybody have a question on this? Bang. Okay. Now, question. I changed your question, but if I'm coming out, if I've got a question for the audience, just build them up and make always come out of the gate with an anxious audience with opinion questions. They can't be wrong. Okay. And follow that script. You can't make that answer wrong. You can say, great answer, one I've never even considered before. You know, I've always looked at it this way, but there's ways getting yourself out of that hot water. All right. Let me keep powering on. I love that. I think with any spare time, I'll do just hammer me with questions. Okay. Common mistakes. A few common mistakes that are out there. All right. Let's see what we got here. And I'm modeling this for you. Sometimes I'll model things intentionally. For today, I'm modeling too much material. I want to show you what it feels like. But yeah, virtually, I tend to go with a little bit more material than normally. But I actually, if you told me list the 50 biggest mistakes that presenters make, I would say you could put up probably about 45 of them together. They won't equal the number one mistake, which is this one. I'm just rushing some nice material to you, I hope, for you today. But you get me out there on a keynote, representing a bureau. You get me out on a keynote representing me. And we're going to talk about this in another time, but we want that keynote to be the door to 25 more workshops. Okay. That means you have to let this material breathe. It's not how much you get out into that presentation. It's how much they enjoyed it and were they able to learn and implement it. So you got to, it's like making a pie. You're going to have to put not too much sweetener in there, not too much flour. I don't know how to make a pie, but whatever you put in there, you're going to have to be careful with those ingredients. Watch out for too much material. Jeremy will tell you. When Jeremy said, "Would you like to speak?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I said, "Here, I'll send you something." And I sent it to Jeremy. And about a month later, I sheepishly went back to Jeremy. I wrote him an email. I said, "I don't know what I was thinking. There's no way I can cover all that." And he said, "All right, thank you." But so we actually reduced it a little bit. Common mistake. Even grizzled vets will make that one. Okay, maybe too many visuals a little bit. I promise you, my visuals are nicer looking than the ones you're seeing over my shoulder here. But I have a choice on virtual. Make it pretty on screen and have me as a postage stamp and lose 90% of the energy that perhaps you're seeing right now. Or back it down, bring that font up to about 50 and use this thing so that we can actually present to the audience. I picked door number 2. Okay. Watch out for too many visuals. Sometimes we fall in love with those visuals. avoid being pulled forward. I loved something I believe Sam did yesterday, which was just classic professional speaker move. And it might have been Patty and Jack. Classic, not professional speaker move is remember which one did it. But somebody yesterday was asked a question, said, "What a great question." I'm actually covering that in about might have even been Corey. We had such good presentations, we're all bleeding into my head. But he said, "We're going to get there. Here's when we're getting there." But he avoided getting pulled forward. Think amongst yourselves how many times you've been pulled forward in a presentation where it's coming in on a page or two. And a lot of times you can't answer it with a sentence. You're going down a rabbit hole and you're now they're moving around in their handout if they have one. And I sure hope they do. And so you have to politely just tell them, we're going to get there. Now I'll give you one that actually isn't on the list here, but if I may, what I do is I keep a flip chart. I'm not the guy who created this, but I do it all the time, particularly in workshops, called a parking lot. Just throw some thumbs up for anybody who knows what I'm talking about in that chat area. Okay. Yeah, I could see him actually on screen. Thank you. You know what I'm talking about. A parking lot is when you say to somebody, to Sarah, it's a great question. We're actually going to be covering that at this point. But you know what? Let's make sure we don't lose that one because I want to get every question answered and make sure. And so I actually write it on the flip chart. That makes that person who asked the question feel valued, not forgotten. That also keeps you from forgetting the question because I'm sure we've all said, we're going to come to that one in about 20 minutes and make sure we get that. And the fourth time we do it, you have an audience that says, A, are we going to really get there? B, does the speaker really know the answers? What's happening? You write it up there. You're saying, I'm valuing it and I'm not forgetting it. Okay. Called a parking lot. You can give it any name you want. All right. Just don't get pulled forward. Okay. Avoid telling on yourself. I don't even know if this is a trick of the trade. I might have slid down to basic. And yet I see so many people doing this. I actually wrote a blog article about a month ago. So about inside voice, outside voice. Okay. Inside, but if you ever watch Simpsons, I haven't watched in a long time, but Homer Simpson frequently gets them mixed up. He'll start speaking when he thinks he's thinking, okay, and think what he's speaking. We do it too. Well, I misplaced my notes, but I know they're here somewhere. Why am I hearing that voice? Wasn't that meant for the inside? The outside is just asking the audience a question while you quietly move around the stage trying to find whatever it is you're looking for. Don't tell the audience about a mistake that you've made. Never do it. There's no sympathy involved, none of that. It's really just a classic mistake that I'm sorry, but I think amateurs make. Doesn't mean I don't make that mistake too. We all do, but let's limit it. Finish a presentation always with what were the two best things I did? If I could do it again, what two things would I do differently? And circle that one if you start telling on yourself. Because I'm going to go a step further in this, if I may. I think an audience will forgive just about anything. But what they can't forgive, what shakes them up, is when you make the audience feel sorry for you. You can't do it. Trip over a chord, gather yourself and say, and make light of it. I have tripped, particularly those U-shaped rooms. Sometimes, folks, you know what I'm talking about. Plugs in the floor, cords hanging around. You look at it and go, what's the over-under on stumbles on that one? But when you stumble, find something fun to do. Just, it's a classic Jaws move. I'll stumble and go, how'd you like that one? Maybe this one's better. Also, if I can get them to smile, it's over. The moment you say, oh, I'm so embarrassed, you just took that. It's like seeing a movie and you just pulled the audience out of the movie. I think the cardinal sin of presenting is making an audience feel sorry for you. Don't worry about dropping things on the floor. Don't worry about stumbling. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. You don't let it bother you. It won't bother the audience. Let it bother you. You shake that audience out of the reality, that semi-reality you're trying to create. Keep an eye on that. No telling on yourself. We don't want to feel sorry for the presenter. Okay. Now it's your turn and my turn too. I'm going to give this music one more try just because I'm stubborn. One mistake. Maybe it was the last one. Maybe one mistake that you'll watch out for. And let's see if I can fool Zoom one time here. Bang. Okay. Um, keep an eye on it. You know, what I hope we're building right now is a whole bunch of little things that we can implement, folks. If well, I'm going to really date myself here, but Groucho Marx, I don't even know if I was even alive when he was alive, but I remember he had that show, You Bet Your Life. If you said the magic word, a bird would come out of the ceiling. Okay. The magic word is, not to tell, is basically, um, well, I've got a few magic words. Which one am I going to pick? Sometimes the magic word is just team. It's how many times I can say, we're a team. Magic word, but find your magic word for the day. Okay. And just try and get that audience to buy into that word with you. Okay. And so a lot of times I might be pushing on, we saw a speaker before us talking about some of the things she was working with, right? What would have been her magic word? Maybe it was collaboration, something. How many times she could tap that one? Pick some of the words that you want. Like when I mentor people who are interviewing for jobs, the magic word is team. How many times can they say the word team? Okay. So think about what your magic word is. Okay. Moving an audience to take action. Well, that's not a bad one. I think a lot of times we do want that audience to take action. Oh, I can tell you the magic word that I like in workshops in particular. Know what it is? I'm curious if anybody actually writes it down. Throw a couple magic words out. You're doing a workshop for a company. They're watching you. Okay. What word do you think you want to tap on to make that all three Whiffums happy? Action. Oh, stop. Bing. Stop the clock. I'm going to use the word implementation if that's okay, but I love it. That's what they want to hear. If you're teaching a company how to do something and you're that consultant, you can talk about all you want. Every time you hit the word implementation, a bell goes off. That's what they want to hear. That companies are tired of paying for seminars and workshops that become the flavor of the month. How are you going to implement it? Okay. Don't just use the word. Think about what you're putting behind it in your materials, how you're following up in terms of implementation. Okay. So let's talk about taking action. Start with an objective. Oh, at the end of the presentation, it's my objective. At the end of the presentation, I hope everyone here feels better about the speeches they're going to give. Okay. Horrible, ridiculous, probably the most misunderstood piece of training there is. An objective, that's actually called the product or the goal or the big picture. That's not an objective. There's two things an audience, but there's a bunch of things an audience wants to get out of you. But the two biggest are, what's in it for me? We already got that one. And what do you expect out of me? How many of you are putting that actually in your opening of what the audience, not how that they're going to feel better at the end? What do you expect at the end? I hope that we walk away with 10 actionable items. At the end, I'm going to ask each one of you to see if this is the kind of program that you want in your office. As a sales guy, I can tell you, if there's an ask, why are we waiting to the end? Although I got an ask for you coming. So I'm going to actually hit on number 2, which is, revisit the objective. So not only lay it out there, but if you've got an ask for that audience, maybe in the middle somewhere, say this should help you. Don't forget at the end, we're going to see if everybody is going to be able to do this. We're going to see what do you want the audience to do? Maybe they've all got to do their own leadership project. Well, good. Tell them going in. I'd say again, the models we had in school weren't good. Sorry. Pop quiz an audience in business. See how they like that. There's no sneaking up on an audience. If there's something you want out of them, tell them going in and then tap on it, revisit it, and then maybe make it visual. Maybe repeat it. Consider making an activity around it. If I want you to remember there's a lot to leadership, folks, but I want you to walk out with at least 3 concrete ideas that you can use as a manager and implement, bing, tomorrow. Okay. What do you think I'm going to do? Maybe in the middle. Let's role play and see how many ideas we can put in place. I'm trying to reinforce it. I want the audience to be successful. When they're successful, they like you a lot. They get their heads handed to them and can't think anything and fail at whatever you're trying to get them to do. They're not feeling good about themselves and they're not feeling good about you. So, and then test it in the close. Usually what we're doing in the end is telling them, now I asked you to think about that. Now, how many of you will be doing that? So, but why would I ask them that in the beginning? They haven't even heard the presentation yet. Okay. Now you try it. See if you can take maybe what you would, and I think this is an interesting question. Let me frame it a little better there. What would you want? What action do you want your audience to take after they've watched you? And feeling better is not one of them. So what is a measurable action, perhaps, that the audience can take? I hope you're writing. And when you do that, that audience knows at the end whether they were successful or not. Sometimes they don't know. You gave a presentation. They don't know if they learned what they were supposed to learn. They just sat and listened to you. Now, I got an audience that was able to repeat certain steps, do certain things that we labeled as that level of success in the end. Now they can answer the question, did you meet the objective? Yeah or no? And as you're writing, I'll just tell you, as an instructor for Xerox, doing 6 years of training the trainers for Xerox, I used to bring the instructors out in the hallway because they had to have measurable objectives for that audience. And I tell them something because some of them are very concerned about the valuations. And I'd say, listen, if we could put a letter grade on it, I'm going to give you an A if that audience meets the objective. And here's good news. I'm going to give you an A if they don't meet the objective. The only thing I'm not going to give you an A on is if you can't answer the question. So what is it you expect of them? What should they be able to do? What are they walking away with? And can you prove they got there? Do they know they got there? Think about it. We've had different presentations. I love them. We didn't always know whether we got where we were supposed to. Sometimes we did. Okay. So, doing 13 minutes to go, we say bulk book sales. Those are some bulk books by Jollis, I guess. Here's my favorite picture. Bulk book sales. Okay. Oh, I'll show you in a minute. Okay. Here's a shocker. All right, BK people, please. So, oxygen for the bear collar people. Get them off the floor. Okay, relax. We're gonna sell more books than that. When I say don't sell books at events, I mean if you'd like, when you're paid a reasonable fee. We're not talking about the Rotary Club, folks. When you're paid a reasonably fee, fly out, stay in a hotel, meals, Uber, take the stage. Why are we hawking books at the corner of the room, making change? And by the way, not only you probably take a loss most of the time you do it, because how many are we going to ship out? How many are being shipped back? What? No. Almost every keynote client I have will say, Lloyd, good news. You can bring books and sell them. And I say, well, I tell you, not so sure it sends the right message to the audience for me to give a presentation and say, it's so good. Now, if you really want to know it, I'm selling tuna fish sandwiches, watches, and books in the corner. Okay. No, I don't actually say all that, by the way. I say, no, I think it sends the wrong message. We don't really want them to be making change in the front, writing checks for books. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll be happy to bring a couple books out, but I'll tell you something else I would like you to consider. Okay. I'd like you to consider, no one argues that we don't have money for a handout. There's a handout, probably $1. A lot of companies, I even tell them you don't have to do it. Put them in color. Remember, I'm a Xerox guy. That's not cheap. Do that. That could be a $1.50. Okay. Remind them that. Maybe remind them that you'll be able to handle the shipping. Because if you work with some of these, some of the, give me the word. We do our, we got a presentation. Jeremy, jump in. Rob's having a moment.
Book Pal.
Well, I know their name, but
Bulk book distributors.
Distributors. That's the magic word. Now, the question is, was that a sneaky trick of Rob to involve the audience? Quite frankly, I do that now and then. Did I do it now? Don't know. Can't remember. But yes, book distributors. Okay. They'll always pick up the shipping of the good ones. And if they don't, they'll just, they'll add, instead of, $10 for your book, it's 11. Okay. They'll charge a little bit more to pick up the shipping. They'll take a little bit off if you want the shipping. But those distributors, I don't know, those rates are real good. If you've been shipping books, you know what I'm talking about. I ship a box of books, FedEx cost me $80. You do it with them, it's $8. But anyway, remind them that you're taking care of the shipping. That's taken care of. Remind them that you are giving them your 100% full discount. You don't need to generate profit on the sale of a book if you can sell 200 books to a room. I'd like to not take a loss, although I'm going to put that up there in a minute because I will. But full discount. We still get we get a royalty, and we also get a couple hundred books in people's hands. Okay. If need be, I'll price that airfare and say, okay, many of us who speak have some miles. I tell you what, I think it's really important we get these books in their hands. What we'll do, I'll pick up the airfare. I want to pick up my own airfare. Now, we take a look at that. We've now got with my discount, picking up shipping, the handouts, which you won't have to produce. We got that book down from $11 to $4.18. Do you think we can do them now? And if that doesn't close it, as I said, I'll even take a loss. How about I'll throw in $1 of my own for every book. That's how important this is. No, I'm not groveling. I want books out there because I want those books signed. And these are some just a couple of pictures. The one on one side, that's about 550 coming down that line. The other's about 200, I guess. I think. And I'm speaking at meetings where the other 3 speakers in the green room are coming out selling 4 books and shipping back 9. And I've got dollies coming in, hundreds at a time, of books that are all signed, given to the audience. And when you tell an audience when a client does that for you, and you tell them how meaningful that is, and one of the greatest things that an author can do is sign a book. So, folks, I signed every single one of them, and it was a joy. You will hear an audible awe from that audience. You really will. Because remember something, you could actually put out 100 books and say, come on up, I'll sign them. How's that working for you? 8 people come up. People get nervous coming up. Let's sign them all. Make sure they know that. A lot of these big meetings, if you can get yourself into these meetings, they're giving gifts out in the evening anyway. I got an idea. Instead of giving an umbrella, why don't we give one of these books from your keynote speaker in the morning who will sign them all? That's a nice thing to have waiting for you in your hotel room after dinner. Okay. Let's see. All right. We got about 7 minutes. Let's talk about this handout. I think handouts are important. I really do. And I just think it's what the pros do. We don't give a picture of slides. I'm sorry. You can. I won't. I won't for a few reasons. First of all, I like to look different than the other speakers if I can. If I'm distracting you, then I'm not doing a good job. But if not, I like it. I hope maybe this was a little easier to listen to. And I'm going a full 60. Okay, it's better than slides. We can do better than that. 2, you can take the notes for them. I love that. I think adults have forgotten how to learn frequently. Their nose is down. I'm going through. My name is Rob Jolison. 17 people are highlighting that. Wait a minute. Yeah, but they forgot. They're not great note takers. They're not great highlighters. So we take the notes for them. 3, marketing information. That might be the best one. I really believe in the first 2, by the way, but I think that's important. I think marketing information is important. So I'm going to take questions in a second, but I'm going to put my own marketing information in. If you look at the back of that handout you got, you're going to see something that I'm working on. It's my first one. And I will tell you that I've done 350 podcasts now, almost all with authors, and 90% of them want to speak. And when I close that mic down and say, what a wonderful job you did, 340 times I hear the same question. I want more gigs. Sorry, Sam. I, I that's what I call them. I want more opportunities. And I think the problem is that most speakers, if when they're trained at all, are taught some very generic presentation skills. You sort of saw maybe some different moves today. Rest is left to us, and it's just not as effective. But more important, most speakers have little to no training or experience on how to navigate the business side of being a speaker. I was shocked when how many people said they're not building their business around the book. You don't have to, but we still had 30% that were speaking on the book. Look, every year is different. Some years have not been a party for me, but I'm 31 years on my own. Sourcing gigs, finding gigs, and there's a method to that. So I'm proud to announce that June 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to put a program on in DC. It's shocking. I hope not to bum you out, but you can't do this in 11 minutes. It's going to be a full 3-day program. And the first day is going to be the business side of things, because I want to talk about how you approach the bureaus, how you network, how you maximize the opportunities that you have, how you take those keynote notes to workshops, the proposals you're writing, the retainers that you're missing, the sales techniques that you can use, and more. I keep hearing get more gigs, get more gigs. We got to talk about exactly how you source those gigs, because I know everyone's got wonderful information. We got to let people hear it. Okay, the delivery side of things. Yeah, I think it's you could see in this 60 minutes, it's the little things. I not only want to go out over that and a lot of high value tips, but I'm sorry, I just don't know how you teach people to speak without letting them speak. So I'm limiting it to 10 people, and I'm going to look at the performance side of things. My commercial's about over. I have too long on this, but I just want you to know why. I know I'll lose a bunch of you because you just can't give me 3 days. But I want to watch you. I want to evaluate you. I want to see you use things you haven't learned with the keynotes you're delivering, and actually not talk about playing golf, but play a couple holes. And so that's what's going on. All right. So it's on the back of my handout. If you're interested, shoot me an email, and I'll send you the agenda, costs, all that stuff, logistics, bang, bang, bang. Okay. So I'm looking, and I see I got 3 minutes. Sarah,
Down. Yes.
pick me a few questions. Pick them out of the hat.
All right. So with the types of questions, what is overhead, relay, and reverse questions?
Okay. Overhead means just like the word. Does anybody know the answer to this riddle? Means anybody can get it. Okay. Reverse means, and typically has to come from the audience, a question to you that rather than you answer, go, it's a phenomenal question, but you know what? We've got a whole lot of resources in here. And I know we've got people in the field and leaders. How would you handle that? Now I'm getting involvement. That's a relay. A reverse just goes right back to the individual, typically not done in a keynote, but done in a workshop just to help that person learn. Last thing, whether you reverse or relay, make sure it's a little thing, but make sure you finish the question. Meaning, if I go, great question, doesn't mean who might know the answer to that one. It might feel that way. You may get a little uncomfortable. When I say finish it, say get it from the audience, and then say exactly. So let's make sure we got this right. Mary said it just perfectly. We have to do this, then we do that, then we add this. That's me basically cementing the answer and showing them that I knew the answer. I wanted it from the room. If I don't do that, and I do a few too many of these, people I think every time he doesn't know his answers, he sends them back out to the audience. Might be paranoid, but that's what I do. Next question. I hope that got it. Yep.
Yeah. So let's do this one. Reiner asked, I've been told that college age audiences don't want paper handouts. They want it electronically so they can take notes on it electronically. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Absolutely right. I've been using QR codes these days. So people can shoot them at the screen and hold on to them. It's just, it depends on the audience. It might depend on the age of the audience. I don't know. I always like having them covered, but I will tell you that certainly keynotes, middle of the road. Workshop, absolutely coil bound professional participant guide. I don't need anybody shooting QR codes when we're spending 8 hours to 16 hours or more on material. But the keynote, it's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. You can go with the QR code if you want. I tend to let people do both. I'll have a handout over here, QR over there. And there are companies like Vistage and other companies, maybe some of you speak for, that will actually already have them electronically in their hands. So that will remove a little bit of my negotiating tool, but only for the keynotes.
Awesome.
Give me another one.
So we're at time, so I'm
Ah.
cutting you off, but
Oh.
stick
Wait,
around.
does Rob have a final closing?
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
Sarah, I would like to leave the audience with one thing before they go to lunch. I believe it was Johnny Fabulous who once said, you're gonna get up in front of a room, make it count, stick your landing, do all you can. I really do wish that I hope everybody here can do a great job, find some tools here. And I will quote Kennedy, who said, the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. So if you think you got it good, the great ones are always willing to learn a little bit more. Still keep nibbling away at it. Now we can go to lunch. Yeah.